Welcome to Self-Perfected.
Good.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
We're here. We're back.
Hey, hi. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hey,
What would you like
Good
to
day.
Hello.
What would you like to
Hello
know
there.
about?
yeah. What would you guys like to talk about? Put it in the chat.
Um,
Put it in the, put it
Let
in
me
the
ask
live
the
comments.
chat.
What was that?
Let me ask the chat.
Yeah. what would
Hey,
you guys like-
I have a thing we can talk. Well, I mean, we'll see. Maybe we'll
I
just
have a
dump it and
question.
switch.
Asif,
Oh,
you
we don't
look
want to
more
talk about your
golden.
thing.
What,
Why does
what
Asif
Drake
look
say?
more
What did-
golden?
Why do I look more golden?
Yeah. That white on white, that's what it must be.
White, this white on that white.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's the contrast. And I'm sitting in front of a window again. Do I do that for the other podcast? I don't know. I think it's this this Ottawa weather.
Sunny
that
Ottawa.
beautiful Ottawa weather.
It's like not
With 100% chance of communism.
that was good, Mitch. Did you just come up with that, man?
And
No, I've actually been practicing that like all week, just waiting for that.
the drink sip afterwards. He was like 100% chance of communism.
Yeah. It was more like snarky. It was more like with 100% chance of communism. Yeah,
Yeah, like, it was like the sip afterwards. It was just perfect.
it was just
That
in
was
stride.
great. That was
Can you
great.
visit?
Well, I think we go
Cameron.
home.
Cameron, what do you want to talk about?
I was looking at my Facebook yesterday, and I saw this post from a woman who's like friends with me on Facebook, and it was saying something about.
Wait, how do you know she's a woman?
Dude, what are you, a fucking biologist?
When I
Yes,
tell you what the post
yes.
said, you'll know.
Oh, okay.
But it said this point of like it was just something like, my anxiety levels are really high today, and just talking about that, and nothing, not going into detail, just kind of like a really short thing, right? And then people were saying all kinds of things like, I'm praying for you, or one person was like, it was a woman, she was like, are you, make sure you're getting plenty of whatever vitamins, and do deep breathing, and like all these different things, right? And I was looking at the point though, because I don't know this person very well, but it's like things pop up on your feed, so you build like a mental image of the person or whatever. And I know I know she's not married, and I think she might have kids, but I'm pretty sure she's not married. I mean, I'm like 99% certain. And I was just looking at that point of how, it doesn't only apply to women, because it's really more of like the feminine point, the feminine. Yeah, not female.
Femin.
Feminine.
It's like the semen, but it's like
Fema.
feminine.
He-Man.
It's like
it's like
FEMA.
He-Man, but Fee-Man.
Yeah. Yes. Fee-Man. That's a good one. That's the new Disney character. But anyways, I've been watching. I don't know why things get randomly suggested to me. There must be some kind of like algorithm or something on YouTube. I don't know. But this guy named Alexander Grace, like his thing started popping up, and I started watching some of his perspective, and he's got some interesting stuff about. It's like mostly he talks about. It's like he's talking to guys about how to understand women, right? And it's mostly it's kind of in the context of sort of dating, I guess, but it's just trying to support men. But one of the points that he made, it was just kind of like a point in passing, was just about how women have this, it's like they have this anxiety, this underlying anxiety, and that's how they experience. I'm trying to remember how he phrased it, but it just made sense to me when I saw this post. I was like, that's where does that anxiety come from for women? It's sort of like a underlying thing that it's gonna like bubble up if you're not getting the right points. It's kind of like, if you don't get the right nutrients, certain health problems will surface. And if you get the right nutrients, it's not a problem, or, like, have you ever like not had enough water and you just get that dehydrated kind of feeling?
Yeah.
Like, imagine if you just had that all the time, or it would come on, and then your thinking is, oh, I need to do this deep breathing exercise. And it's like, oh, it's my anxiety. It's this mystical thing. And it's like, no, you need water. And so I was just looking at that point of how for women, they have these points that come up, but because they've been brainwashed to believe they don't need men, they try to solve it in all these dysfunctional ways. And then think about this. What is the number one thing that these let's just say trans people generally are experiencing, which is why they're complaining about why they don't fit into this world and so forth, is like that anxiety. It's always a thing that goes hand in hand with these issues.
So, okay. I was just telling Christine about this morning. One of my friends on Facebook was making a post about like Ron DeSantis apparently is going to do something against Disney because of like they're crossing the line. Like we watched that video of
there was a law that was passed in the 60s that allows them to run their own government on their properties in Florida.
Oh snap!
They have their own government, and it's like they kind of make their own rules. And I mean, I don't know the details of it, but now he's saying we're going to revisit that.
Oh, that's cool.
Can you explain? Is it the whole like Disney having the push towards more gay things in their stuff? Like,
right.
I don't know the full context.
So basically, it's just see some executive in Disney and a bunch of their employees are openly saying, you know, we're not going to say boys and girls anymore because we need to have more LGBTQIA inclusive language.
There was a leaked Zoom meeting where they were talking about all these points. So it's like, it's clearly obviously happening under the surface all the time, every day, but a call was leaked and that's why it went big. And it was kind of like this is all also in the context of the bill that was passed that teachers are not allowed to talk about sexuality and so forth from like, without kindergarten through third grade or something.
Yeah, kindergarten through third grade without parents' consent.
Yeah.
Right.
And so then there was this whole activism thing about it, calling it the Don't Say Gay bill. And like, it was basically acting like it was anti-gay when actually it's nothing to do with being gay or straight or anything. It's just don't talk about shit like this with kids in the school.
Right. And so the Facebook friend who was making this post was basically saying like, you know, this is so terrible that Ron's doing this. And then people were commenting, and we live in Florida. So a bunch of Floridians are like, it's literally just, you're not supposed to talk about like things like marriage or sexuality to kindergartners without parents' consent. And so this person was making the question, or like they had an anecdote of, well, this child has two fathers. So what if, you know, someone asked them about their two fathers, can they say anything about that? And like the reply was just like, well, why would you talk about their two, like, that's their family. Okay, whatever. Like, but you're not talking about marriage. And they're like, well, you definitely learn about family. You have these little handouts in class that say, you know, mother, father, child, like you're going to say that this person doesn't have a family. It's like, wait a minute. If you're going to talk about family, you realize like two men can't make a child. And this is the point that I was bringing up to Christine, is just basically
what?
Like,
wait, did you just say that two?
Hold on.
Wait,
I'm looking on your Facebook profile, Drake. I don't see you got a degree in biology. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah. I don't know how you're establishing these facts.
Okay, his wife does.
so, but
Wife.
check it out.
That term is antiquated. It's partner.
Wife
Yeah,
supremacy.
the wife is hate speech now.
Yeah,
You're a wife
P-
supremacist, Christine.
It's PX Ertner. It's Pixner. You take the A out
Pixar.
of an X.
Pixar.
It's Pixar. Yeah.
But check it out. I think if you'd ask any of these people, like, should little boys be thinking about like having families? They would say, yeah, of course. Like, how is that boy going to have a family if he thinks you start a family with another boy? Isn't that going to create what you're talking about, Cam, that underlying anxiety of like, how do I have a family when I'm like, I feel like I need to be in a relationship with the same sex or whatever, you know, or like, I feel like my gender or sex or whatever is not enough, or, you know, I'm supposed to be less than other people. You know what I mean?
I'm
Like-
curious how they would explain like flowers.
What?
like how flowers multiply, like how they
Mhm.
like would they say that they're non-binary?
They are non-binary. You don't have like male flowers and female flowers. Are you fucking kidding me?
Dude, like seriously, how would they, because don't they refer to something in nature that's like dolphins are gay, therefore it's like natural? Okay, yeah, like apart from that point,
Dolphins
the
are
gender
gay?
point is so specific.
Here's the evolution of
Something,
where
I don't know.
school's going. Here's where school is going. They're not going to teach you about biology at a
It's
certain
gonna be straight up just Disney.
Mm.
Like
No,
Disney
like
is
at
gonna
a-
be school.
Yeah, at a certain point, it'll just
straight
be
up.
social justice. It'll just be indoctrination into the current mindset. It won't be teaching you math, science. They're already saying math is racist, logic, all this other stuff is literacy. It's going to evolve into send your children here, and we just indoctrinate them all the time into being the perfect little slaves, because you don't need math and science anymore. You can just look it up on Google.
Okay.
Why do you need that stuff? Just Google
Okay.
it.
So true.
You know what? Like the point about this, or like the way that you can see this really clearly, is when they started schools. Not necessarily that everyone was educated, but in the places that were educated, they got dumber, right? Then they started implementing, like they knew, okay, we can't reach everybody. They started implementing these like interventions that are supposed to be like, what was that? No Child Left Behind, or Common Core, all these things that they sound really nice, but as they're implemented, kids get dumber by the generation. And what I've noticed, what's really clear to me, I was explaining this to one of my students actually, like as the generations go by, these kids who grow up, they have no idea about the things that happen in the past. If you look at history, like why is history taught when we know, we can see really clearly what's going on in the media? We can see really clearly, oh, people are just like flat out lying. And they've been doing this for years, for centuries. They just flat out lie about what's happening in the world. And that's spread as news.
Oh yeah, and they just
truth.
started doing that, by the way. That's recent. Yeah, like all history before like 2016 was totally true.
Yeah.
And then it was all just lies.
Right. Exactly.
You know, people say like, oh, the media used to be so like objective. And I'm like, you're retarded. Like, that never happened.
But
You ever heard of Vietnam, World War II? Like I mean, come on.
Exactly. Like, and it's taught as if this is fact. This is objectionable or objective.
This is
fact.
not objectionable.
Yeah, not objectionable,
Sustained.
but objective fact that you can't like, and it's also taught in this way that's like super boring. Like you have no interest in it. So you almost feel like, yeah, this must have been what happened, because it's absolutely
You're like,
boring.
can we stop talking about this? I just want to talk about being gay. Come on. When are we going to get to the gay
And my
stuff?
anxiety. And I just want to talk about my anxiety.
Right. It's but it's really interesting because like the more that happens, the less people who have actually lived through it, and the more that the kids, they grow up and they just accept it as like, yeah, that's fact. Like 9/11, I was asking this particular student about 9/11, like, hey, because he was studying something along those lines. I was like, well, what do you think about it? He's like, well, I don't know. It's like kind of just crazy, the timing of everything. And I was like, what do you mean by that? He's like,
Building 7 fell down right after. You're like, oh shit.
I wish. But like for him, it's not like, because in one of his assignments, that's what it was. And in his English assignment, it was talking about conspiracy theorists and how it was talking about, actually, I don't even think it was English. I think it was actually math. In math,
Conspiracy
they were
theories.
using, yes, they were using Venn diagrams. And they were like, they polled conspiracy theorists, and like 70% of them thought that 9/11 was a government plot. And then it had some other conspiracy theory, or like people didn't land on the moon was the other one, right? And so like he's supposed to be learning about probabilities and stuff with Venn diagrams, and they're like inserting this into his math, which has, what does that have to do with anything? Right?
Fuck?
And so I
Wow.
was noticing this is how they impulse it at every level, right?
You notice they didn't do like this. This is people with anxiety. This is people who are trans LGBTQ. And it's like, well, because you wouldn't have a Venn diagram.
Just be a circle.
Right. So, but the point that I'm making with that is the more that they can do this each generation, the less people will like have pushback on it. Because think about, for us, we lived through 9/11. We saw like what was going on actually. And then we could also put together like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Wait, what? And so we have pushback like that doesn't make sense. But then as you raise each generation up, dumber than the last, and you're constantly impulsing them, and their parents have been impulsed, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's just the generations get dumber and dumber and dumber. And now you have your slaves are too dumb. They're smart enough to keep the system going, but too dumb to make any challenges to the system.
The rough part is because we think, like, imagine a computer, right? Like you're the one pulling up Zoom or pulling up, Chrome or Safari, and like you're the one doing the searching and all that stuff. And the computer was like, yes, I am self-generating these windows, and like these thoughts are my own. Like I'm the one that's making the decision to pull up Zoom right now. Like I'm the one who's choosing to start up right now and go to sleep. It's like from the elite perspective, it's like everyone is being programmed to just fit into these funnels. These funnels where the other side of it is a total automaton that will then put their children into the funnel as well, right? But it's like people will defend themselves, as we all have with our own all of our own bullshit at some point, where we will defend ourselves because we think that it's like our idea. There's some point where it's like, well, I have to now stand for this because, and this is why self-forgiveness is so key. It sounds so funny, right? Like Bernard will be talking. I used to have this all the time where Bernard will be like describing really intricate concepts that are very real in this world in terms of how parents are gods because they're the ones who are creating their children. And they actually make Hollywood a god because they sit their kid in front of movies and TV shows. And that's what actually creates your child. So Hollywood is actually what God is in this context. And then he makes a statement, like, so he's going into these really in-depth concepts. And then he talks about how this is why without self-forgiveness, we're all fucked. And because self-forgiveness has this kind of like pre-installed context of like religion and like, that kind of feel of like, oh, self-forgiveness. It's like this esoteric spirituality. Yeah. Exactly. It feels disconnected. But when you really investigate it, it's true. The number one reason why somebody would defend their child being in school, sending their kids to church and all of that stuff is because of the consequences that they've already accumulated if it turned out to be true that it's not best to put your child in school. Mm-hmm. And something that I've noticed really effectively with people who make a lot of money, I won't say any names, but people coming into our distributor network, which is really cool, who are really effective in business, their ability to say, oh, I'm not doing what's best. And I see everywhere where I'm doing wrong. And I don't feel bad about it per se. Yeah, a little bit of guilt, but I'm constantly working towards becoming the best version. And I see where I'm not as good as this person in motherhood or this person in business or whatever the case may be. And I'm going to keep pushing towards it. Their ability to do that is very high because they have a high self-esteem, because they have a high processing ability, because they can make money in this world. Now, for the people who are, who have a lower self-esteem, like the average person today, like we had somebody who, we had a clubhouse yesterday and it was really awesome. It was, I don't know, 20, 25 or so people. It was a lot of fun and it was really powerful. And we got word that there was somebody who was supposed to come, but they're younger. There must be like 17-ish years old. And because of all the isolation and the coronavirus and all that stuff, and maybe like smoking weed or whatever the case may be, their anxiety overcame them and they didn't want to show up. This is where the average person is at. Very, very sad. That's why we have a responsibility within it. But that person is not going to be able to question what they have accepted in their lives or for their children or for their partners or whatever the case may be, because they're if they are to admit that there's something else that's wrong with them, another mistake that they've made, and when I say they, I mean this was me when I first started this process, I could not accept that I was wrong about something, because then my reality would crumble. Like one little flick, because the only thing that was holding it in place was not anything real that I created. It was not a real self-esteem. It was not, I know I'm valuable. It was like, I'm super fucking afraid and I feel very invaluable. And when I say invaluable, I don't mean like the kind of value that you can't put
Unvaluable.
Yeah, I feel not valuable.
Invaluable, dude.
Non-fungible.
Non-fungible, yeah. But it's like that feeling of like, fuck, I don't know my place in this world. I'm just a number. I don't know what to do. I'm meaningless if I can't make money. And then if someone's like, hey, by the way, man, like, you should question religion, or you should question just wanting to feel good. I'm like, I'm out for like the week. And when I'm back in, I still have the same beliefs. I didn't change, because I cannot let go of, oh my God, is there something else that I'm like an idiot about? So it creates this whole context around not wanting to let go of the decisions that we've made, where without using TechnoTutor to understand things for ourselves, so we can't blame other people for making a suggestion about something, we have to understand it for ourselves. And then two, having the self-forgiveness to let go of our quote unquote history, so that history doesn't repeat itself. Without those two things, we're going to continuously just have people sending their kids to school, and not wanting to let go of, yeah, maybe I fucked up a little bit. And this was a really powerful story. Like one thing that really, when I was first learning about Avery's story and realizing the context of, because at some point in his life, sitting down with his family and being like, guys, like, the big family relatively, right? 4 kids, and being like, hey guys, like, I'm sorry. I put you guys in school and forced you to go to church and all this. Like, I was wrong. I was wrong. That moment, I know for those kids, like we all have relationships with them. Like watching them has been so cool, right? With all of us. But it's like that thing for an individual to do is so difficult. But it just speaks to, one, Avery was effective in business because he has to face the negative all the time. But two, look at the process that he started walking to change himself, change his family, et cetera, and that what he shared with all of us, where we can do that for ourselves and be like to ourselves, fuck, like Asif, look, I know, like I made some stupid decisions in the past. Now I have to let go of that and change. And that's the reason I can have a relationship now that really works. And that's the reason I know I'm going to have great kids, because I'm willing to be like, oh no, that was a mistake. I'm gonna forgive myself. And I'm going to let go of any quote unquote guilt, regret, anything of that nature, let go of that and just keep moving forward. So it's just putting the tools into context of how does it change society? Because when we talk about changing the education system, what do people think of? School. Right. You're going to change school.
Yeah.
That's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
But what people don't realize is a parent educating their child is a system of education. If every parent, it's just like a mentorship, right? You have the mentor, you have the apprentice. That is a system of education, right? So the way we're changing the education system, it's not within the the box of school. We're going to have a new education system where a parent is responsible for their child's education 100%. It's the same thing for relationships. I don't know. I guess you would call it education for a boy to become a man and a girl to become a woman, but that's what we're doing in relationships. One thing that was really cool at the clubhouse, right? It must have been around 25 people. I said, raise your hand if you're in a relationship. And 90% of the room shot up in the air.
That's cool.
And the other 10% were people who were brand new.
That's cool.
Who are looking for a relationship. So we have a system of education to support the man and the woman to come together. That's why Unlock Fort Knox to Abundant Life, that book, it talks about the purpose and the context of male-female agreements and why it's so significant and important. We have the system of education for that. It's not in a school. right? It's not in a school. And to be limited by that thinking means we're never going to progress the way we need to, because Kian brought this up yesterday as Muge was massaging his head, and he said Muge, Avery asked us this question, and let's see what the first thing that comes to your head is. Where does a child first learn unconditional love? From their mother. But for a mother to be able to give that to their child consistently, can they be at work?
And
they have to be
constantly having anxiety.
Be constantly having anxiety? Could they constantly not even know if they are a mother or a father or whatever the fuck?
Oh, let me bring this point up too. I just saw a thing today, or yesterday rather, about this lesbian couple that had a child through I think it was through IVF, right? Yeah. And they're suing the clinic because their child is a boy. It's like already 1 year old. I mean,
they wanted a female. Yeah.
They wanted a girl. They got a boy. And I saw a really funny video talking about saying like, well, first of all, how dare they assume? But second of all, there was a point where the article was actually edited, because originally it was saying that the woman like hated the child. Like every time she would see the child and go out and like whenever she would breastfeed, which, hey, cool that she was breastfeeding. It's like the child's face would transform into the male rapist who had raped her when she was younger.
Oh, fuck.
Right. And she was
definitely
like
the baby's fault, right?
Yeah. And it was just going to all these points about how, and there's like lots of people apparently who have similar things where it's like they have a kid and then they're upset that it's male because that male is going to be part of the male culture and all this stuff, right? And it represents all of that, negative. Hey, Kian. What's up?
What's up, Keys?
What's up, Ash?
What's up?
Did you check out the vitamins? Okay.
I'm using
my vitamins.
He's so gracious to let me use his office. So.
Love it.
So cute seeing you guys together.
Wait.
Talking about crazy women who get mad at their children when they have to breastfeed them or something.
No, we were talking about lesbians who had a male, but they wanted a female, and they're suing the clinic because they gave them a boy instead of a girl.
Oh wow!
And that they hate the child.
Yeah.
How
crazy is this world nowadays?
I'll check out that video that you sent in the chat.
Okay. See ya.
That's actually so funny, that moment of Kim being like, hey, you guys talking about some crazy shit about like a normal couple just like having a baby that's not happening. Cameron's like, no, we're talking about this crazy cartoonish like real life thing.
But again, that point of the unconditional love, it's like how, and then it's like, think of the underlying issues within that person, that they couldn't have a male child because they hate men. And somebody could say, oh, well, it's justified. They got raped or something. It's like, no, it's not justified that they hate men because they got raped or whatever. Being raped isn't justified, but neither is hating men because you got raped. It doesn't make any sense. That woman's not qualified to have a kid, whether it's a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
If she can't deal with that shit in herself, how is she going to support that child to, number one, not have all of that shit internally in them, whether they're a boy or a girl?
Yeah.
But then how is she qualified to support that child to be like, look, this is something you believe and that you have a problem with, and you can change it. You can let go of it. You can forgive yourself and so forth. Right. She can't even do that, to the point where she literally sees her child when she's breastfeeding and like hates him because it reminds her of like nothing to do with anything. That'd be like saying I got bit by a dog one time and I hate dogs.
Yeah.
That's like saying I had a bad taco once, so I hate all Mexican food and I hate Mexican people because they are somehow associated with the tacos.
Yeah.
It's like, what? It doesn't make any sense. So
but people literally rationalize like that. Like I've heard people say stuff like that, because
they're not even aware of what's really going on internally. And then what happens is in society, there's points that are programming us with the quote answer. And so this is a great segue because
it's programming us with that kind of thinking is acceptable.
Well, yeah, but not just that. What I mean is like, okay, all that stuff you were saying earlier before I jumped in it's perfectly tying in what we were kind of joking about earlier. And like, we're joking about LGBT, trans, all that stuff because it's such a serious thing in our world and it shouldn't be taken seriously. Like the issues that people are having should be taken seriously, but the solutions they have should not be taken seriously. And so you have, for example, like Asif was saying, you get, you're making this point about a person approaching their life, like the person who had the anxiety, right? They don't have any purpose. They don't have any real structure that's based on what's best. It's just kind of like think about when you're a teenager. Everyone go through this point when you're a teenager going into college or so forth, where you're kind of like, what am I doing with my life? At some point, people have this, not everyone. Some people just never slow down and never question. And so those are the people who get super fucking triggered when you bring up religion, when you bring up whatever the thing is they believe in, they get super fucking triggered because they're like, I can't question it. If I question it, everything will collapse. So imagine you're a woman and you're like, I'm independent. I'm doing all this stuff on my own and everything. And it's like, well, maybe you should look at it differently. It's like, oh no, I can't question anything. And they don't have someone there, a man, to be the structure, to be like, hey, it's okay if you want to collapse today. You know, like I got it. Do you see what I mean? I've got it covered. And so their anxiety never has a place to like dissipate into. It's like an electrical circuit. You know, Max could tell anybody this, but most people wouldn't even understand that there's a power source, but then there's also a ground. Yeah. You can't just have it free floating. It's not going to work. The circuit doesn't work properly. What happens is, if you think about it in the context of a person, when you have a man and a woman and they come together and they have sex, it supports to ground a lot of that stuff that's going on for men as well. Like we experience that anxiety stuff too. It's just experienced in a different way internally and it's expressed differently, but we also experience that. Like,
hey, before you get too far from this point, that point of when someone is like not challenging any of their beliefs, right? It's almost like this underlying program of, if I don't question it, like if I'm faithful, if I'm loyal, this will work out. Like if I don't question it, please don't make me question it, because then I'll seem unfaithful and then it won't work for me anymore. It's that same point of like, only think positive, only think positive. Oh, no, please don't bring this up. Oh God, now you're going to ruin my whole trajectory. And it's your fault.
Yeah.
You know? We're taught that in religion.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you just have to have faith. Like, okay.
You also
God
taught
created
that, well, a lot of people
think about how it works. Like, okay, think about when they're telling the child, God created the world. You're like, really? How? Yeah, like 6,000 years ago, it was a man and woman named Adam and Eve. Oh, really? Where did they come from? Like, you know, like, oh, well, just God created them. But like, how? Like, where did the egg come from? And like, well, you know, it didn't work. Yeah, you just got to believe it. What do you mean just believe it? Just believe the story. It's like, okay. And then, and then there was Jesus, and like, he would like, you know, he was born from a virgin. So it's like, well, where did he get the male DNA from? It's like, well, just believe the story. Like, don't worry about that part. Just believe it. Just have faith in it. Right. Well, and Jesus is going to like save us all. And like, okay, but how? Like,
isn't he dead? Like,
but just have faith. Like, so every single thing is, you just have to believe it. You have to have faith.
Well, think about this too. It's attached to the ultimate like pleasure and the ultimate pain, where the ultimate pleasure is okay, because then when you die, you just get to be in heaven with God, where it's apparently amazing all the time. And if you don't believe, right, you're literally burning in hell and excruciating pain, like, with no time limit.
That too.
It's like the ultimate timeout, right, where you never can come out of it and play again.
I did. It's an ultimate timeout. That's so funny. I didn't even process like just the specificity of this one point, where even as a child, nothing is about your current, like, you're here to sacrifice your life because it's for heaven or hell. Like, I wasn't even really processing, like, wow, from the fucking day that you have words to hear and hear things, it's like about heaven or hell.
You're already dead.
Wow.
That's why we're saying it's the opposite versus being alive, like who you are as life. The system immediately finds every way to be like, no, you're dead. Don't exercise and embrace that life that's in you and like use it to be here and like fucking create amazing heaven reality right now. You're dead. You're going to die. It's all over. Just fall in line with the system, because you're already dead. You're waiting to get that life when you die. You're going to get it then. And it's like, no, you're fucked. And then all of that, all of it, the parent doesn't even know what they're doing. All of it ties into the system that exists to keep you just not questioning the way things work. What were you gonna say, Drake?
Because then the reaction to that is like people think, well, yeah, that's why I don't follow any of that anymore, and I just live for myself. It's like, oh no, you got fucked harder.
But the problem is, that doesn't address the part of that inner point where it's like, something's not right. Something isn't right here. And so it's still like has to express itself as something. And then so we're seeing, one thing that's really cool about the LGBT, trans, all that kind of stuff is it's this point within where it's like the system is very restrictive. And I don't feel like I'm myself. I don't feel like really fully who I am and like fully expressive and creative. And there's something missing and there's something not right. And then what happens? Because it's the mind that's being used, not real awareness. It's like, well, I know what it is. I feel this anxiety because what's your only experience? Like you're a girl, right? It's like these guys, they always look at me and people say I can't do certain things because I'm a girl and all that. That's what it is. It's I'm not a man. And if I was able to be a man, and I've never liked the fact that I had to wear dresses all the time and like whatever the particular things are. And I know I'm kind of caricaturing it, but it's like all these thoughts that compound. And then nowadays, you don't even have to even think about it. Nowadays, before you even have the thought of, oh, it's this and this reason, somebody already told you. You know what? If you have any anxiety, you know why? It's because you're not really a boy. They told you when you were 9 or when you were 5 or, whatever. The fact that you even had to question if you're a boy or a girl, like the fact that you even had to you didn't even get to have a choice about it itself is the imposition. The fact that you didn't get to freely choose. And see, this is where the unschooling thing really ties in, where it's like you as a child, you should be free to choose everything. Like, think about it, trans and unschooling. Because a lot of the people who would unschool have that same inner mentality of it's like not forcing any choices on the child. But here's the point that both of them miss, whether it's deliberate or whether it's just from lack of understanding or it's because they're just brainwashed, is children are programmable. So the idea that you can freely let your child choose anything, or that a person who is trans, because they now are able to choose, so now they're choosing to be this gender expression with this, type of hairstyle and clothing and everything. This is who they really are. And I was looking at that video from the Disney leaked call, and one of the people was talking about how, something about, I don't even fucking remember what the specific point they were talking about, but it had to do with, there wasn't enough gender, non-binary, whatever character leads and so forth. And they're always background characters and all this stuff. It was like the way they were, quote, presenting themselves was like a beard, glasses, sort of like balding hair, like a computer nerd, but clearly like a trans person. It was like some kind of nerdy, like overweight computer nerd looking person. I'm like, if you can like freely express yourself as anything you want, why would it be that? Like, why wouldn't you be like a unicorn or something? Like something like a superhero costume with like magical, like lightning bolt eyebrows and shit. Like, why would you be like this fat, ugly, like nobody wants to look like that. So it's just, and then they're saying that they've got the keys to being expressive, and that's the person that is like, we're not doing enough to cater to children's, who they really are and in their expression, all this stuff. It's like, you're not even fucking expressing yourself at all. All you've done is taken, like what the system has done is it's taken the inner anxiety that exists because we all have to compete for survival unconsciously all the time, no matter what, whether you're winning or losing. Mm-hmm. And it's taken that and it said the reason why is because the system is so oppressive and you didn't get to choose everything you want to be and do. And now you can. And you need to make sure that everyone else can too. Yeah.
You have the people who think that God is going to save them. And you have the people that think that the devil is fucking them. It's like either people think the system is God and everything's going to be okay when Donald Trump is president again. And then you have the people who are like, the system is the devil. Like what you thought was God is actually the devil. And so we need to destroy it.
But it's like the system, the algorithms are promoting all this LGBT trans stuff. Like that should be the biggest red flag for a person, but because they can't question everything they bought into, like we were talking about earlier, they can't see it. It's like, it was like, well, but the Republicans, like they literally think the system is God and the Republicans are the devil. Whereas the system is literally the same side that's, it's the wolf in sheep's clothing. It's the same thing that's always been the same thing that caused the inner anxiety and everything, which has created this explosion in people who are quote mentally ill or whatever, who then think that the outlet for that is to be trans, whatever it is. The same system is the one that's now telling everybody that's where your freedom's at.
You know what it really is the anxiety that they're experiencing in their body. And as we all have, it's like, there's this point within you that always feels like you're the only one who's experiencing it and everybody else is happy and all this stuff. But that's just like a side point. It's like you're trying to remove yourself out of your body by becoming somebody different. And that's the exact point, right? So you're like, okay, it's because I'm a man. And if I was a woman, everything would be easier. But many boys would be like, it'd be so much easier to be a girl. And many girls are like, it'd be so much easier to be a boy. As they grew up, same thing. But my point with that is the solution to them escaping the anxiety inside of themselves is change their gender, change their sexuality, whatever the case may be. That point is going to be the exact point that is used to entice everybody into the metaverse that's already being used. That just come out of your own body and become the avatar of who you want to be, where you can dress up as a unicorn, as a whatever Cameron was saying before. And you could also be the fat guy with beginning classes if you wanted to, right? But it's going to be that point, and that's going to become the whole transhumanism and all that stuff. Is the way to escape your anxiety is to get out of your own body. That's the point that's resonating.
Like imagine that you can't tell your entire basis of your identity is just step 2 in a 3-part process.
Well, obviously you can.
Like it's not something you came up with in your part A of the plan. Yeah.
But check this out. Trust the plan. But that point that you were saying of how this person would express themselves is like, why not lightning bolts and all this? Like they don't realize that their expression is the after effect of being suppressed. And it's like, oh, well, because I can't do all these things outside of myself, right. I can do this, and it's like, if you were able, as Asif was just making this point, if you were able to do whatever the fuck you wanted to do, like you had the ability to create on a massive scale, like anything you put yourself to, you can create it, you can do things, you can change things, you can trust yourself, essentially. You would not care about changing your representation of like how you present yourself as a being, because that's like, who cares about that? You're able to create anything you really actually want. And so because you can't do that, and because you can't trust yourself to have that ability as well, or trust yourself that you can do things that you set your mind to, you don't have high self-esteem essentially, right? Because of that, then the after effect is, well, then I'll just change the way that I express myself, because you can't actually change anything for real in real life.
Well,
and that
isn't that exactly what we offer here though with Self-Perfected, is helping people to come to that realization that, hey, you are in your body, right? But you can have this ability to create on a massive level, right? And there's certain guidelines, right? You got to have some principles, you got to have some tools that can allow you to do that. But then it can help you actually see, holy shit, I can actually create something for real in this real shared reality, right?
Yeah, here's the difference between the change.
Real quick, Cameron, I never really did this, but I looked at the live stream for the first time. We got like 18, 19 people watching. That's pretty great.
That's cool.
Shout out you guys.
So the difference between the change that's out there that you were like talking about, Asa, versus what Mitch is talking about, the change that we're suggesting, is it's like you can't be reactionary one way or the other. Okay, so let me just break it down for a moment. Religion is a reaction. What's interesting about religious people is that they at least acknowledge that they're slaves. because they're saying, yes, I'm a slave and there's nothing I can fucking do about it. And I'm in a prison and I'm in a slave camp or whatever. And my slave master is waiting for me on the other side of this weird thing he's put me in. And he's going to give me a reward later for just going along with it. What's so unfortunate for them is they don't realize there's no slave master. Like, because you didn't realize you were the one enslaving yourself and enslaving others. You are the God. When you get to the other side, because you didn't learn how to create anything of real value and that's best for you and everybody else, guess what happens when you get to the other side? Nothing. There's no difference. So you're fucked. And then you have the people who are the reactionaries in the sense of, yes, we're in an oppressive system. Everything is slavery. So let's try to find freedom within this, but not in a way that fundamentally changes it by actually understanding the way things actually work and understanding the limitations that exist. Instead, it's like a child where you're like, I just want to fantasize. I don't want to get to know reality and understand it to the degree where like now I can actually do something. It's like, it's a very childish, not, childlike, but childish way of approaching things. Like, and I've had to, for myself, walk a very difficult process within myself of letting go of the desire for instant gratification and understanding how things work. And, the more I work with physical tools and physical projects and things like that, and even building a business, obviously, but it's really apparent when you have a tractor and you're trying to get it to work. You can't just be like, I just want it to work and I'm just going to drive it and keep driving it and let the gas run out and not grease it or anything. Like, no, you have to. And it's not always fun. It's like, okay, now I have to spend the next hour learning how to put grease in this tractor. And in that time period, there's no result. There's no fucking thing that's built. There's no dirt that's moved. It's just, I'm sitting here fighting with this canister and I'm trying to get the spring to go back in and it's not fucking working. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, but if I don't take the time to figure that out, then there's a problem. So when you look at the system that we're in, it's like my self-expression is, in the context of that analogy, is sticking with the point of, I have to grease this tractor. I'm going to sit and I'm going to focus on this problem and figure out how to get this canister to work. And then I'm going to figure out what's the next point. And when the next point doesn't work, I'm going to figure that out. So I am limited within what I can focus on by the problem that's in front of me. But I apply my self-expression within that. And so self-expression is just me in the moment, focusing and solving the problem and then going to the next part. Self-expression is not, I'm just going to make up anything I want right now. Like that's a very destructive, it's just a very destructive attitude. And it's the attitude of a slave that was never educated effectively to understand how things work, because the joy and the satisfaction that everyone is missing, which is like, I don't want to say it's the opposite, but it's kind of like what you want the anxiety to be replaced by. That joy and satisfaction and experience is on the other side of solving real problems. When you actually create something and you're like, hey, this has a result for me. This has a result for other people. It may not touch every single person in the world's life, but for the people that it does affect, it's like supportive of them. And so think about this. Imagine you are an LGBT type, trans type person, right? And you're like, I'm expressing myself. I'm not bound by the rules of gender binary and all this stuff. But then you go and you work for Disney, a mega fucking corporation that only sees people as numbers. And you know what? Think about it. Maybe they actually believe within their self-dishonesty, like, no, we're helping these children to embrace who they are by calling them what was it, like, people instead of boys and girls.
Everyone. Yeah.
Everyone.
Hello,
people,
everyone.
friends, or whatever.
That's it.
So we're helping them, but it's like, why are you charging money? So what about the kids who can't afford it?
Would you do?
Why isn't it just free for everybody? Like, what about all the things that happen to that child because their parents have to go to work and they have to struggle for money and so forth? And the tickets, how much are tickets at fucking Disney?
$1,000 just to go to Disney for a week.
Like,
It's not available. It's like such a privileged fucking point. Like the idea of Disney itself is like, how is it any fucking different than all this white privilege and all this shit? And it's like, it's insane. You work for a mega corporation. You're literally just another slave, another survival point in the system. But because you've found the excuse for your anxiety and it's always projected outward on other people that literally can't physically fucking do anything. Like imagine your idea is just these other rando fucking slaves. Like they're the source of my anxiety because they won't accept me for who I am. And it's like, no, dude, that's not the reason why you have anxiety. The reason you have anxiety is because you have to fucking slave away for a mega corporation that doesn't care about you or anybody else. And the reason why the real fundamental reason why they're embracing all this woke shit at Disney is because they've got all it's like they've bet all their money on the horse, and the horse is the woke ideology. And it's like, that's where consumerism is heading. We have to get on that bandwagon, because if we don't, we're fucked. Like the traditional approach is dying. No one gives a shit about religion. No one gives a shit about traditional values and all this stuff anymore. The consumer ideology is, because just like if you were saying, the whole point is to get you into the metaverse. So if belief in an authority outside of a computer is going to interfere with that, the system is like going to destroy that. Everything is going to move towards anything that supports the idea that your anxiety is caused by the fact that you cannot express yourself. And the only way to do that is to be in a video game 24/7 where you can make up
by
the
the
rules.
limitations of reality.
And this is the point. This is the point. It's the mind. It's how the mind sees change. Let's create a fantasy where we can pretend. We've already been down that route. If you study the history of Destiny, you'll understand the whole history of heaven, the multidimensional experience, existence, everything that's created a lot of the conditions that are here on Earth. And anybody who thinks they fucking, I'm in the dimensions right now floating around. No, you're not. You're in your fucking mind. You just don't understand how it works. But the mind always wants to change through some superficial thing. It's like, if I get this shirt or this jacket or these shoes, I'll feel a certain way. And no, that's not going to change anything fundamentally. You're still going to have the anxiety because you based it on something that is changeable. So it's like, well, what happens when you get bored of that and the fashion changes? Guess what? You're going to experience the anxiety again because it's not real. Versus if you have everything that you need, the basics taken care of. I mean, that's not even done. And yet we're trying to jump to, choose your gender, choose your this and that. And there's got to be... That's
really funny. That's actually really funny because it's like, I'm really hungry. Why am I hungry? Maybe it's because I didn't shave today. Like maybe I'll shave. Oh wait, maybe it's because I need to grow a beard. Well, maybe it's because I'm not wearing the right shirt,
like,
the right hat.
Because my candy bar is the wrong color. And
right.
Like, what?
That's what it is. It's because it's like because I'm in the right relationship. I'm not the right It's like
I need the Travis Scott fucking candy bar because that's why I'm,
It's like the fucking most simple solution is why when we mentioned this, it's so, I didn't understand this the first 10 times I heard it, but understanding that happiness is having all your basic needs met, I was like, oh fuck. Like you're right. When I'm fed and I'm with friends and I'm catching some sunlight, it's like, I'm not thinking about anything else. I was going to say, I feel amazing, but you're just here.
And then imagine in that state, you're like, hey, you guys want to go do something? And everyone's like, yeah, okay, cool. You want to play a game? You want to create something? Hey, what if we built something? Like, yeah, let's do that. But then it's like, you're cooperating. There's no underlying anxiety that's coming in and making it a fight and all this shit, which is what happens when most people get together with their friends. That's why they drink or they have something that it always has to be centered around, because it can't just be, it's just us being here and then let's see what happens. There has to be something that's sort of the focal point, like football or whatever the thing is.
So it's just, one thing that was a big realization for me, going back to the point of self-expression and thinking that if I think and feel, then I'll create things in reality. Like that's what it really is. That point of like, okay, if I just start thinking of myself differently, that will affect reality. That point is inside all of us from when we were we get programmed with that from the system at such a young age. And when I realized that this whole thing where, you know, you have a bunch of gurus saying, you know, you just have to think and meditate and, you know, it's all about attracting and all these points. When I realized, you know, when I broke out of that and came upon the destiny material and programming myself with Technotutor to see reality for myself, I was like, holy shit, these people are lying to people. But that's not even necessarily the case. They might not know any better, whatever the case may be. But the real point is they were not programming people with, hey, you can sit on your ass and just think and you'll change, and just change the way like change the way you're thinking about something, and then it'll all change if you just like start telling yourself something different. They weren't programming people with that. That point existed within all of us. And then they gave the market what the market wanted. All those gurus, this massive explosion of spirituality, and you just like, you know what, just fuck the world. You just have to be spiritually aligned. You just have to be aligned in your mind. You just have to change your mind. And you don't actually have to have any effect in reality. That's not something that was pushed into the marketplace. That's what the average individual was looking for, was searching for. This final point of, I don't actually have to change and I will get what I want and I will be happy. That's something that has been inside of us, that has been reflected to us by being sold information and all of these points that are exposing that point inside of us. We're like, wait, is it true? Law of attraction, the secret is like, that's the final secret is I don't have to do anything. I could just sit and think about it. The final secret is I could just put these goggles on and then I can be who I want to be and have everything I want to have. It's a point within us. That's why we can't blame the gurus. We can't blame the lesbian or the rapist.
No, they just found the fucking way to sell you based on what you already wanted.
Exactly. That's it. That's why this is what we mean when it's the ego.
And that's the same thing Disney's doing is the point. It's like, we want to blame Disney like, oh, they're now obviously it's going to have the effect of children that are put into that are going to be further brainwashed, but it's not like it's Disney and all these companies that are doing it. It's the point that's already within everybody of wanting this answer of not having to fundamentally change. You know, another point too, to consider on this that we just haven't quite said out loud in this particular conversation is the idea that it's like, oh, well, maybe they wouldn't say it like this. It's like, think about it. If you're saying, oh, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl, and now I'm going to choose to express myself that way, I guess they wouldn't say it's a choice. So there is a recognition that it's coming from within you. But I think the mistake is thinking that it's who you really are. That's the issue. They're thinking it's who I really am, rather than I was programmed this way. Because isn't that interesting? It's like
they would identify with it versus like
well, it's like, you know how people get upset if you say like being gay is a choice.
Yeah.
Okay. Which obviously to the degree if you understand how programming works, it's not a choice, right? It's not a preference. Okay. But then you would defend the point of, okay, it's who I am.
It would be like,
so then you were programmed that way. No. So you chose it. No. Well, which is it? It's just who I really am inherently. No, it's either you were programmed and or you chose it. Which is it? There's no other option.
You're going like, oh, I run this software. I run this application. It's who I am. That's what it means to be a computer. You're like, oh, so you're programmed that way. No, like, because we could remove that program and put in a different program. No.
You see, there's like this religious nature to even the LGBT stuff. Mm-hmm. Because it's like the way I am is somehow okay the way it is.
Yeah.
And therefore, I need to find out how to adjust society to allow me to express these points, not realizing that's all just programming. Instead of going, like, think of the priority you would put over the way you feel as to who you are versus what you physically are as to who you are. And instead of changing the feelings, they're like, I'll change my body. I'll change my clothes. I'll change the way people treat me in terms of, I mean,
imagine getting a Mac and it's programmed with Windows and like someone's like, oh, your Mac's not working properly. Like, would you like for it to run the way it's supposed to? We can install, the OS that's supposed to be on there. And you're like, no. It came installed with Windows, so it has to be this way. But it's a
That's
Mac.
cool.
You're supposed
Like,
to.
you could change that. They're
Yeah.
like, no. You need to change everything about the software you're designing.
Right. You just don't understand. Macs can come installed with Windows on them.
It's like,
And
sorry to tell
sometimes
you
they
this,
do.
but somebody put the wrong fucking software on the computer.
Right.
But that's another thing too, is like, of course you're going to have 2 and 3 year olds saying that they're transgender now. I've seen some stories now where there was this teacher who was saying how they were having a discussion in class about some new kid, the kid was saying how many boys and girls were in the class, and they counted the teacher in the girls or whatever. And the teacher said, well, no, don't count me in the girls. And they were like, what? They were like, what do you mean? They're like, and somebody says, she's, or Miss So-and-so is a people. And then someone says, no, Miss So-and-so is a they, them. Okay. And this was like 4 or 5 year olds. It was like kindergarten. It was like a very young age, right? These kids are not coming up with this vocabulary on their own. That's not what's happening.
Right. And I'm sure that teacher was like, I'm so proud of these students.
Right. And imagine the parents who are so absent because they're at work all day, following their careers and so forth, right? Like they're told to do, programmed to do. And then they come and then they get their kid from school or daycare or whatever, and their kid's saying, yeah, I'm transgender. And the parents like, oh, wow, okay. All right. This is coming from within the child. It's like, that'd be like if your child came home and was like, I want some Doritos. And you're like, wow, you just invented Doritos. Do you know that actually exists? Did you know that? Did you know that this chip that's got cheese on it, flavoring, and MSG and all this other stuff, whatever it has, it's called Doritos? That's an actual real thing. I can't believe you imagined that yourself. This is amazing. My child is a genius.
The reason that happens is because people know that, well, the corporations, everybody knows that parents are massively insecure about their ability to effectively parent their child.
Ooh, yeah.
And so that they program the parent to say, hey, if your kid starts expressing themselves about their sexuality, about their gender, if you do anything to make them feel bad about that, you're a fucking horrible parent. That's like
Okay, and here's
narrative.
Here's the fucking sinister thing. Okay. For those of you, because I know you guys don't have kids yet, right? But you're going to see this, you'll see it for yourself, and then you'll be like, fuck, this is crazy, right? Children, when they're little, it is normal for them to want to play as different characters and genders. And then I'm a boy right now and I'm a girl. It's actually a normal part of development. It doesn't mean that they're questioning their gender as it is. If things are not explained properly, then it can turn into a dysfunction. Why are you guys grinning?
Just fucking around with me.
It's just abusing his power. I'm the victim.
Okay. We need to change that power balance. Okay. But do you hear what I'm saying? Like, it's normal. Like, you'll see it with our kids. You see it with all kids. Like, when there's certain points where it's like they want to be this boy character or a girl character or whatever, right? And at a certain point, they stop doing that. And it's like around the time of 2, 3, 4 years old. There's like a phase where they'll go through that. And it doesn't mean they won't ever do it again or anything like that or something like that. It's just, it becomes like a less of a dominant point. If the parent isn't there to help them understand, yes, you can pretend to be that, that's fine. But also, you're a girl and here's why. And this is some things that are about girls and these are some things that are about boys because of the biology and so forth. And here's things that are not so important, that are not tied necessarily to your sex, gender, and so forth, right? But if the parent is absent and doesn't direct the point, then all kinds of dysfunctions happen. Like, imagine the parent who slaps the boy because they put on a dress and says, "You ain't no boy, you ain't no girl." Like, that's not an appropriate way to do it. Like, what's the fear? Because then there's fear and there's religion and there's all this other programming inside the parent that's like, I don't want my child to be that way. But the child didn't learn and understand. So then that's going to create dysfunction. And then from that is going to be all kinds of disorders and so forth, where the child might put unnecessary emphasis on, I feel so restricted as a boy, I'm not allowed to wear dresses. Or boys don't act that way, because there's a fear. And then it's like a suppressed thing. So The problem is it's not directed at all. The parents are not even realizing how much of an influence they have. I'm going to post this thing real quick in the chat. And then Christine, I was thinking you could put that into the live chat as well. But since we're close to the time, I just wanted to share this with everybody. It's pretty short. Do you see it?
Yep,
Yes.
got it.
Okay. But it's from Bernard's blog. It's day 404. It says human nature is programmable, so don't be paranoid. Right. And what is one of the major paranoias that people have about their children and about, even about what we're doing? People will say it's a cult. People are being brainwashed, all this stuff, right? And I really like this blog because Bernard makes this point that, wow, in case you didn't realize it, everyone's already fucking brainwashed. So, imagine like you have a friend and they join Self-Perfected, and then suddenly that friend is like talking about making a difference in the world, standing up, changing themselves, so forth. They're like, man, this group you're in, they really are brainwashed you. They brainwashed you. And it's like, oh, did you think you weren't brainwashed already? Did you not realize that everything you fucking saw, heard, watched, did, everything when you were a child brainwashed you? This is a point that people need to understand. Like when you watch, I know all of you have seen it. If you haven't seen the documentary Century of the Self, is it The Self or of the Self? Mm-hmm. Century of the Self. I think it's by Adam Curtis, right? Mm-hmm. Watch that documentary. I really, really suggest that you watch that documentary because it shows you how since like the 20s and even before then, society has been engineered into being a consumer society. It doesn't mean things were all just great and wonderful and fabulous before then, but the consumerism specific point has developed since the 20s through marketing, public relations, and so forth. Watch that documentary because you'll see that the way people are, our human nature is programmed. So then when we justify all these things of like, well, we can't have this kind of a society because of human nature. That's not how marketing agencies look at it. That's not how Disney looks at it. That's not how any of these people who run the world, who do the things that that affect our lives. If you didn't think human nature could be programmable, you wouldn't tell your kids about God. What would be the point? They already have a human nature. It's irrelevant. You can't change it. It's the way it is. You wouldn't educate people. You wouldn't do anything. Nature, in terms of being a human being, is largely programmable. Like you're not going to change the fact that you have two arms very easily. Right? Because that's part of your inherent DNA structure. They probably don't even fucking know the specific part of your DNA that makes sure you have two arms. Because by the time that cell starts developing into a cell, they're like, how the fuck did it know to be an arm cell? How did it know to be a leg cell? The scientists don't even fucking have a clue. They might have ideas, but they don't have a fucking clue. So you can't change stuff like that. But the idea that you can't educate a child to really clearly understand logic and how things actually work in reality, and then to understand how to treat each other in a way that's best for all, that starts where? No. It's the same point Asif was saying earlier about where does a child learn unconditional love? And whether you're a straight person, a gay person, a trans person, it doesn't fucking matter what, you did not get proper unconditional love from your mother. You didn't. I don't care if your mom stayed at home. I don't care if they homeschooled you. I don't care what they did. You didn't get it properly because in the back of your mom's mind was a anxiety that somehow, for whatever reason, their survival and your survival is not guaranteed in this world. That's a very real anxiety. Mm-hmm. And the solution to it is not to find a new consumer way to express yourself. It's to change the system fundamentally so that everyone has what they need, which starts with very basic stuff that not everyone has.
This right here, as we come to a close, is the fundamental point for anybody who's like, whoa, this world is fucked up. One really cool thing about the Century of the Self is Cameron's talking about how it displays about how it designed everybody to be a consumer, but you'll realize it's through indirect means of framing these societal points, these cultural points that then result in the consumer point. It was changing the way women think about themselves, the way men think about women, the way men think about men, the way women think about men. That resulted in the doubling of spending power through women entering the workforce and then being now the marketplace just doubled, right? It was an indirect approach, which was really fascinating. The thing that if anybody is worried and are like, holy shit, like this world is going to shit, this is the perfect example to show you that this world is programmable. Right now, what's happening with all the crazy stuff that's going on in the world and what everybody has accepted, it goes to show that the 99% will accept anything if it is cultivated in their environment and it's coming from higher up, all that different stuff. The point to realize is if they're willing to accept a bunch of bullshit, all we have to do is create the thing that creates information. We have to take responsibility for the thing that's programming the schools to then program the children and the teachers. We have to take responsibility for the thing that's programming the average person to think a certain way, because everything that's happening in the world goes to show that what we're saying is 100% true. You can direct society based off the information that you're programming into each individual. And then they will take responsibility for that information and program other people with it. So let's just use those mechanisms for what is best, for what will actually bring about a world that everybody wants to be a part of, that you can actually create happiness. There's a misconception that, you know, when we talk about principles and all that stuff, that means let go of happiness and, you know, like you can't be happy and all this stuff. All we're talking about is what is actually necessary to be happy. All we're talking about is how you actually create a world where every single person can be happy in it. It's what we've always been talking about. That's what best for all means. It doesn't mean devoid yourself of all feelings. There is a process that we have to walk because we feel good out of doing things that are only in our self-interest. We have to walk a process of feeling good from creating something that is best for everyone. So that's going to be a process that we walk. But what we're talking about, the end point, is creating a world where everybody can actually be happy. And the proof that you can program society is already here. Look at the world. So what we're suggesting is let's program society for something that's fucking awesome. And the best possible thing that you can conceive of. Because what I can say is the relationship that I have now was better than I could have conceived of. I couldn't even have thought that I can get the support from my partner that I'm getting. I couldn't even imagine business the way we do business together. I couldn't imagine it. So what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, take whatever quote unquote fear that you have of like, oh my God, this world is beyond repair, like everyone's so crazy, to show you that, look, the reason why the world is crazy is because a minority of people chose to program the 99%, and the 99% just went along with it, even if it doesn't make sense. So imagine how powerful we would be to be the 1% that programs the 99% to go along with something that actually makes fucking sense. That's what we're here to do, right?
Yeah.
So,
and
Exactly.
Let me just clarify. Let me clarify real quick before we stop. It's not about us programming everybody. This is and I know that's not what you meant, but I just want to be clear with everybody.
It's good.
It's not about the 1% us programming everybody. It's about becoming the 1% to change the systems to relieve survival pressure off of people so they can take the time to be able to take responsibility for their own programming. Because this is the one thing that's never been done, is everything is always top down. And think about it from this perspective. Does it program a child if they grow up in a house where they always get what they want? Yes.
I mean,
Well, no, it does. It programs them to always want what they want.
Yeah.
It programs them. Does it program a child to grow up in a house where they never get what they want? Yes. Does it program a child if they sometimes and sometimes don't? Yes. Like no matter what, you're being impulsed by your environment. So wouldn't we want a world where the programming people receive from the environment is you always have what you need? And then beyond that, they can decide who they are, what they're going to choose to like experience and do and all of those things. But they can only do that if they have proper education and the parents support them with that. So we're not here to say we are going to take responsibility for shaping everyone's minds. It's like, no, that's something that should be done by the individual.
Yes.
Firstly, with proper support by the parents. And I mean, anybody who wants to react to that, you're doing it already, whether you like it or not. You just, as a parent, if you're putting your kid in front of Disney Plus, guess who's doing the programming? You with Disney Plus.
The capitalists.
Yeah, but it's like you did it. You gave it to them. My kids don't have Disney Plus. Why not? We didn't buy it. They don't care about it. Like I woke up this morning, or when I went out, I was like feeding the animals and so forth. I came back into the house. The kids had already woken up. Katie was still in the room with Caius. They were still sleeping. The kids had already woken up on their own. And they were in the living room and they were building a circuit together. And I took a video of it. And like Max was telling Seneca, no, that's a transformer. Get the transistor or whatever. And she's like, here you go. And he's like, cool. And like, they're in there playing with each other. Like they must've been doing it for like 30 minutes or so. They're not. And so like, if the kids, what do they do all day if they don't have TV? They can create stuff. Right. So if we can create that for ourselves and we can support other people to have the same tools and to develop that for themselves. And then at the bigger level, we can remove all the points that's keeping people locked into a system where they're distracted from actually being able to do those things. That can totally transform society. It is a grassroots point. It's not a top down. The part where you're at the top is where you're removing the points that is preventing the grassroots from working.
Exactly. You're creating the environment necessary for people to walk this point. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's because when my friends around me are changing, walking this process, it influences me to change. So that happens in the family, that happens in the community, that happens.
And that's the perfect example. The self-perfected clubhouses, the hangouts, all those points, that's the environment.
Yeah.
When you go to those clubhouses, no one's going to brainwash you or program you. They're going to show you how you can take the tools and change yourself so that you can actually do what's best for yourself and everybody else in this world. That's what everybody wants, whether they realize it or not, but that's what we're here to support with.
Cool. So Friday night hangouts, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And then we have the Techno-Tutor support calls afterwards from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. These are all
6 p.m. What time zone?
Eastern Standard Time.
US Eastern. Yeah.
Yeah. US Eastern? Is there a difference?
US Eastern. There's an Australian Eastern.
Oh, damn. Didn't know that. And
you lived in Australia.
We do daylight savings. So watch out for that. Because a lot of people don't participate in that. And there's also, for those of you who do have Techno-Tutor, don't forget there's the self-perfected parenting group for people who have families who do have Techno-Tutor. Those are very, very profound, even for people who don't have kids yet, to prepare you to be the parents, to see this world to come to fruition where your children are actually, they feel responsible as the custodians of life is good. And I want to share that with everybody. Like we can really create this to be the best that it is. And supporting you to see how you were programmed as a child. That group is really effective for that. There's also the men's group and the women's group for people who have Techno-Tutor who've been walking this process seriously. And let's continue to create the wave of people who actually value life enough to walk their process and share this with other people. So anything else you guys want to add?
Like,
Make it happen.
share, and subscribe.
Yeah, share this with 3 people that you think might benefit from this. We need to hear this. Cool.
Cool.
Bye, everybody.
See you later, everybody.
Bye.
All right.